in an old portfolio. It was during college days, pre-internet, when illustrations were really kind of a lot more valuable. And so there it is. There's the human heart with colored pencil. Ta-da. And there's a self-portrait. I was looking for things I've done that have to do with anatomy.
Your hair was that long back then?
Yeah, I know. It's
nice.
Kind of scary. It's kind of scary. So we're going to roll through this. You can sort of see what I have in mind. And maybe I can do a little drawing demo with this iPad that I just got my hands on. Mr. Hate's helping me set up, and the stylus. But I wanted to kind of throw some ideas at you all, okay? So first of all, probably many of you have had a little bit of drawing or you've drawn on your own, but there's really no one way to do this. You draw the way that you draw. So emulating another style is great, and it's a great way to learn, but go easy on yourselves, and let's just take this one useful step at a time, shall we? It's not something we can cover all today. If I behave and I'm invited back, maybe we can do a little bit more after today. But my understanding is for today, we're going to be a little bit short and sweet, 10 minutes, maybe more. We'll see how it goes. So I thought about this, and I just gave you guys a little bit of information about my philosophy with note-taking, and vis-a-vis, I don't know what you do in Mr. Hate's class. If you are there in person, if you have textbooks or hard copy notepads or notebooks, but I really think it's valuable that you start including doodling and drawing by hand and taking notes by hand, because a lot of studies have shown that it helps your retention, your long-term retention of information and a better understanding. And I kind of liken it to, I taught in France for a while, and I noticed that the teachers would make their students draw a lot. They would make their students draw subway systems or a map of Moscow, whatever it was. And I thought that was super interesting. And I wonder if you've ever heard this slogan from medical school, which is called see one, do one, teach one, because it's so intense that it's all sort of visual. You observe, then you try one, and then you teach one. I think with drawing systems and diagrams, and in this case, human anatomy, that might work. And maybe that might be something that you could try with partners in breakout rooms to try to, if everybody had a different sort of thing to share, learn about it, and then as you teach someone else, draw it and show. Okay, that's an idea. Huge fan of the Renaissance. These are all my drawings from college. These sort of observational drawing of human anatomy. We did a lot of what's called life model drawings, which is nude models. That stems from the Renaissance period. Leonardo da Vinci, of course, as you know, was a scientist and an artist. And he kind of is given credit for the practice of going to morgues and researching human anatomy up front and personal. Not something I don't think that I personally could handle, but his drawings are used to this day in some medical schools. I thought I had a link here somewhere. Maybe it's down here further. So we did a lot of observational drawing of human beings, but also of things like skeletons. And I know when you return to school in January, you'll be able to see a human skeleton to scale in the science department. This is a little bit advanced, but again, it's from college. I actually just assigned the same assignment to my AP art students last period, which is to identify an appropriate part of the human body, study it, and draw it as many times as you can, in part from human observation, okay, and right in front of you, but also to find really beautifully drawn drawings of them by artists and draw those drawings. It's a great way to learn how to draw as well. Okay, so here is the link, and I really think that this is a great model for what your notebook could look like in this class. And you don't have to be an amazing draftsman like Leonardo to get the point here, that you're taking notes. These are linear, intellectual, verbal notes, but you're diagramming the notes using images for yourself with arrows and little information pieces. And those little coffee stains and ink blots and things like that, doodles, will actually help you retain information. So that, you know, your pages, again, everyone takes notes differently, which is wonderful, which is something I think that we lose maybe when we go digital with our note taking. Okay. So explore, noodle around on that website a little bit. Okay, so here's something that could be super pragmatic, very doable, and I think maybe helpful if you're a little bit maybe I don't know, intimidated, overwhelmed by this idea of drawing accurately. This is something that the masters used as a method, and beginners, of course, use it too. And it's can be a little bit tricky, but the concept is simple, guys. You superimpose a grid using a straight edge. It doesn't really have to be exact. You can lose a lot of time with rulers and measuring. I mean, you certainly want ratios to be basically the same in the grid that you superimpose over an image. Let's say that you're doing a diagram of the lungs or the human heart or the brain. You can print out a picture that you take with your iPhone and then superimpose a grid over it. If you're careful, if you're really careful and delicate, I do this. Get your hands on some tracing paper and tape a piece of tracing paper over your laptop screen. It just skips the whole process of printing out onto a piece of paper. But again, you don't want to damage your screen. You want to be a little careful there. Okay, so I think you get, this is a little bit clear, but I will spell it out. You notice the grid below the butterfly is bigger, but it's the same number of squares and it's the same proportions, the same ratios. So the idea here is I'm no longer drawing a perfect butterfly on this big, huge square down below. I'm starting with numbered grids, and again, it's easy to label them 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc., so that you can find and map where you are in your drawing. But here's the concept. The idea is that, if you see my cursor, this little square is a lot less intimidating to copy than this entire butterfly. And before I forget, a wonderful exercise to practice drawing is to draw something that's complex. This it wouldn't work with this because the butterfly is too recognizable upside down. But you take something that is complicated and you turn it upside down and you can't recognize it anymore verbally, intellectually, and then you copy it. And almost always, people, when they haven't had drawing training, do much better when they don't recognize what the thing is and they just copy shapes and lines and place them where they need to be placed on the page. So you could even kind of up your game by doing this grid and just flipping the image upside down. But again, because this butterfly is so perfectly symmetrical, I'm not sure how much that would help. So there is it's so readily available on YouTube to find helpful tutorials to do this kind of thing. The problem with tutorials is that we get a little screened out. We're tired of being talked at. So learn how to navigate those really quickly and cut to the chase. Also, sometimes it's hard to kind of cull, extrapolate, the good ones and the appropriate ones and things like that. So give this a go. Again, I'm not 100% sure what your application needs to be initially, but that will be, I would think, a decent sort of, I'm not sure I could call it an assignment, but we could call it an invitation, a challenge, an encouragement to do that in your copious amounts of free time.
Yeah, well,
there's a drawing of my daughter who's now in college, which I drew 30 seconds after she was born. And Mr. Haight, I knew you'd relate to that. So.
Oh yeah.
So a couple more things. In a moment, if we have time, I can do a little screen shared basic drawing, sort of calisthenics, if you will, from the iPad. You guys can follow along. But I think looking forward, you have this grid process. It's really tried and true. It's quick-ish. And all you need is a straight edge and maybe tracing paper or a printer. So next time we'll cover basic shapes, shading. So shading is easier than you think and is super, super helpful. You upgrade your drawings from flat to all of a sudden you look like a pro. And we'll kind of take it a step at a time. Any questions or comments?
We'll definitely be starting simple too, and hopefully building our way to some more shaded and drawings in the future.
Cool. So I think if I go to stop share and then share again, I can get to the iPad.
Yep. Yeah. Let's give it a go.
And this is so exciting for me. I hope it's exciting for you guys too. All right. Yeah. Screen mirroring, tap, coming, yep. Here we go. Yes! Success.
All right.
Right. So let's get to, nope, not what I wanted. Nope. They told me you might even have sketchbooks. That's great.
Yeah, and actually I didn't get a chance to let them know ahead of time before the class. But yeah, if kids, if you want to take out something, even if you have your notebook open, just something to draw and something to draw with, could be fun to follow along with Mr. Pratt.
Yeah. All right, so real basics. And I can't see all of you, but Mr. Haight can, I think, maybe. So
yeah, you can just
just show of hands. How many of you have some competency in drawing? Let's do the other way around. How many of you have none? Zero. I don't draw. Okay.
Seeing 4 or 5 hands.
Some people didn't raise their hands either way. Okay. It's okay. How many of you are tuning out? Okay, so here we go. Let's see what happens here. A word about how you hold your pencil. If you want to hold your pencil like you're writing your name or signing a check or writing numbers, okay. But I invite you to try something different, to hold your pencil with, like, it's horizontal, okay, parallel to the ground, and your thumb underneath and your 4 fingertip pads on top, and have your, it's up to you whether you want to hold your fingers close to the point or further back. And I invite you to try drawing more with your shoulder than with your wrist, and to draw really, really lightly. All right, let's see what happens. I'm going to try to draw a basic shape. And I just drew a circle. Did you see that? Can you see that okay?
Yep, seems to be coming through just fine.
Yeah. Now I'm going to draw a triangle, equilateral triangle, more or less. Right? And now I'm going to draw about the same scale as the others, a square. And I want to point a couple of things out really quickly. We talk about this in architecture class as well. How to not draw a line. Ready? This is the shaggy shagster. No shaggies, okay? Or if you're drawing a square, to not complete the deal, bad, that's bad, we don't want that. Okay. What we do want is for confident but softly weighted lines, okay, where you're kind of finding the shape, finding the line, and then giving more weight to the line when you feel confident that you are where you want that line to be. And for lines that go from point A to point B, we want them to go a little tiny bit too far and have them be confident lines. Okay. All right, now here's a little fun challenge that children kind of like. We're all children in this case. And the challenge is, if I allow you to adjust the ratio of those shapes, but you can only use each shape once, can you arrange them such that you've drawn a horse's head in profile? Give it a go. I'll give you 30 seconds. And I'll challenge you to not look at the screen while you try it yourself. See if I can remember how to do this. Aha. Ta-da. Did anybody get it?
No, my horse looks more like a house.
I remember during art class you taught
Yeah?
us, so I just remembered.
Who's that? Is it Bailey?
Yeah.
So we're talking about what happened here. Here we go. So we're talking about basic shapes. And if I just keep using those shapes or variations of them, I could kind of draw the whole horse, right? And then at some point I can get a little bit more detailed. And just draw the thing.
Wow.
But I want to just show you, kind of invite you to liberate yourself with your mark making. Keep it soft, keep it light. Let's go right to a quick lesson on shading, because I think it's really important. So if I draw a Coke can, a soda can, a cylinder, if I see it from eye level, I'm not going to see much curve at all. It's going to look something like that. It's a little slanted. It's a leaning tower of Coca-Cola. Let's try that again. Okay. So, whoops, getting used to this. For a cylinder, we want to put, oh my gosh, what is going on with this thing? If I want to do shading to make this look 3D, we need what's called a crest shadow, okay? And we're not going to do it right in the middle, but somewhere on the third, and there's going to be a line straight down, and then a little bit of shading there, and then a really sharp line at the edge where the bottom meets the surface, and then that kind of fans out. So the crest shadow is actually the darkest area of shadow on an object, and then there's usually reflected light from there to the edge that's in the dark. You see that? And I haven't gotten to know my stylus yet on this iPad, and so it's like drawing with a black pen and ink. I can't get a lot of soft Leonardo da Vinci shading on this. And so I'm doing what's called, if you look at this, cross hatching, where I do parallel line sets and then I do diamonds the other way. And if I learn how to maximize that, exploit that, hopefully I can create and squint your eyes, and hopefully that starts to look like there's real light there. Okay.
That looks great.
Over here, I'm going to do an egg. And let's just say the light source is coming from over here. It'll help my image if I do a horizon line in the background that is blocked by the egg. So it'll say that's a table, or you could say that's the ocean or a desert landscape miles away. Let's just say it's a table's edge. Let's not get carried away, Mr. Pratt. So my crest shadow needs to be kind of like the shape of the egg. You see that? And I need to shade in kind of softly. The dark side of that crest shadow. And then again, somewhere on the surface, there's going to be a sharper edged dark line. And then that shadow will fan out. Do you see that? You see how that starts to give shading and volume?
Yeah.
And then finally, more simply put, we're not really going to get into, I don't think, perspective, but if it's a shape, it's 2D, that's a square. If it's 3D, it's a form. So the 3D form version of a square is a cube. We all know that. And again, I can do shading on one edge. Just notice how I didn't just fill it in. If I fill it in, guys, I'll just do another one under here to demonstrate. If I just fill it in all opaque, I'm leaving nothing to the imagination. There's no reflected light, and it flattens it out again. I don't want that. I want to give the semblance that there's actually reflected light inside the shadow. And so the way to do that is to have a crest shadow, or in this case, just the edge, would be darker than the interior, and leave just a little bit of light in there. Okay. And we could argue that there's a tiny bit of shade here too. And when you squint your eyes, hopefully that's that's reading as volumetric, right?
Yeah.
When you get to, Ian, do you know how the eraser works?
You just tap on the eraser, and then you just write with the eraser just like you would with a pen, and it'll erase any whole line that it comes in contact with. And
cool.
Yeah, and if you hold down over the eraser, you can make it bigger too, so that it covers more space.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so you can just like X through a line, and it'll erase it. Like any line it touches, it erases.
Sweet. Thank you for the tutorial.
Yeah.
Wow.
This has been great, Mr. Pratt. I was kind of hoping to move on to one or two other things for anatomy stuff, but was there anything else you wanted to touch on, or?
No, I'll just leave you with a quick sketch of the brain seen from above and the corpus callosum. Don't want to cut that.
Yeah.
And thanks, everybody. I hope this was useful. And again, if Mr. Haight found this useful, and
this was great. Maybe hopefully we can do a few more.
Okay. So long.
Great. Thank you. You're good on sharing screen. All right, everybody. Let's thank Mr. Pratt for dropping in and taking the time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate the extra screen time. And we'll hopefully do something like that again. So thanks a lot, Mr. Pratt.
You got it. See you guys.
Great. All right, everybody. You will have a drawing assignment for homework. What I'd like to do right now is just direct everybody to our lesson plan for today. I'll show you on my screen. Again, just go to the Human Anatomy and Physiology homepage, and you can either look under Assignments for tasks for Unit 1, Lesson 2, or if you scroll down to our little table here, Unit 1, Lesson 2, today is the 14th, click on that, and the Unit 1, Lesson 2 plan will come up. Mr. Pratt, it was really helpful with that. Went a little overtime, so I'm going to cut out a lot of that stuff in the middle. And what I want to delve into right now is a real quick summary of some anatomy stuff you're going to be reading about tonight. And then I want to release you for a little activity that we're going to do on Flipgrid. So I've got 5 minutes, so let's just do something real quick here. I'm going to do the same thing Mr. Pratt did. Hook up my iPad just to show off some slides here. And we're going crazy with this technology here. Everybody's seeing some slides on their screen. I'll need audio. Yep, awesome. Okay, again, I'm going to go through this real quick, but your first reading, we're going to read chapter 1.1 and 1.2. I'm going to ask you to take some notes on this as well. But we're diving into the difference between anatomy and physiology. So what's the difference? Someone tell me, what's the difference between anatomy and physiology?
Anatomy is more about like the body, and then physiology is movement.
Bingo, right? Yeah, you can think of like all the body parts, you know, so we parse the human body out in all these different things. Very good. And then movement, function, digestion, how does all that work together to make that work? Yes, that was very well said. There's a lot of tricky language in anatomical position. A lot of the drawing you're going to be doing is of human figures like this. It's called the anatomical position. And we can slice the body up in 3 different ways. Sagittal is right down the middle to a left and right side. Frontal is exactly what it sounds like, to a front and back. And then transverse is across the middle there. And what's interesting about transverse is that gives you rotational movement as well. But we'll touch more on movement stuff later on. If any of you took biology, you might remember that humans are coelomates, which means we have body cavities, which are essentially these spaces in our bodies where certain organs tend to sit. So for example, here, the thoracic is where your heart and lungs are. And they're separated by the diaphragm, which is the big muscle at the base of your lungs. And then all your digestive organs and things like that are down here. And this is actually important because your lungs are under pressure. So when you're breathing, they need to be in this separate chamber, the thoracic, up above. It's actually very common in car accidents. People will sometimes poke a hole in their diaphragm, and then as they continue to breathe, they start to suck their guts up into their upper chest cavity. And so surgeons have to go in and move everything back down again. Kind of interesting to think about. I'll just kind of glance over this, but I'm hoping you guys know your systems here. Cells are the basic units. A collection of cells is what? What do we call a group of cells working together?
Tissues.
Tissues. And there's 4 major tissues. I won't write them out here, but they're all shown here. We have connective tissue, nervous tissue, epithelial tissue, and muscle tissue. And I think you can pretty easily figure out what goes where there. What about a collection of tissues? What does that make?
Organs.
And we often simplify organs down a little too much. A lot of people think the stomach digests food and the heart pumps blood, but they actually usually have sometimes more than one function. And the organs hooked together make up an organ system, which performs some kind of service to our body. And then we are organisms because we are a collection of organ systems. And so when we tackle different organ systems, we'll break them down in this way. We'll probably look at the specialized cells that make them up and so on. Your book has a nice little summary table of the major organ systems. We're not going to cover every single one of these, but it's good to get an idea of what the different organs are a part of and what they do, and that there's a lot of crossover as well. Okay, an important concept to understand is homeostasis. Your body is constantly working to maintain a stable internal environment. This is a really important concept to keep in mind. It's something you're going to do an activity shortly to explore. But our body, things are constantly deviating, right? You are constantly either overheating or getting cold, or you're getting hungry, or you're full. And your body regulates that by sensors picking up the signal. Your brain is the control center that receives those. There's a lot of different glands and hormones that are then released as effectors to generate a response that are normally counteracting, but that's not always the case. There's something called negative feedback in homeostasis. And what that means is undoing. So this is maintaining the balance by undoing whatever is out of whack. And so think about body temperature, right? If you are overheated, does anyone know what your body does if you get too hot? What's a typical response to the body if you're getting too hot?
The sweat.
Yep, we'll sweat. You'll seek out shade, right? We'll try to drink some water. All of those actions bring you back to your normal body temperature, and then the sweating stops. You're not thirsty anymore, right? It's maintaining that level. Less common is actually positive feedback, which is to amplify, right? This takes a signal and makes it even more powerful. And there's not very many examples of this, but the common one is what's pictured here on the slide. What's about to happen to this baby?
Birth.
About to be born. As the baby's head pushes on the cervix, there's a hormone that's released called oxytocin, and it actually creates a positive feedback loop, right? Where it generates more and more muscle contractions, and that's what allows a baby to eventually be delivered. Good example of positive feedback, but doesn't often occur. If homeostasis is out of whack and isn't working, it generates a variety of different issues. Type 2 diabetes, right, is our body's constantly working to maintain an optimal blood sugar level. Does anyone know if you have type 2 diabetes, what isn't working anymore? Does anyone know what hormone they have to inject themselves with?
Insulin.
Yeah, insulin isn't functioning. And so they can't lower their blood sugar often after eating and things like that. It becomes much harder to regulate. Aging is often associated with a lack of balance and homeostasis too. You'll learn about running in the chapter, and you'll learn about metabolism when you read the chapter. I just wanted to give a quick glance over of those things. I posted a video on there as well of me taking a little more time with those slides, which you're welcome to look at. But you'll be reading that section of the chapter as homework. Okay, I now want to get you away from your computers and to do a little activity where you're going to explore a little bit about homeostasis. On the tasks to complete list, this is now, we're all the way down to step number 6 right there, homeostasis activity. You're going to do a little bit of exercise, and you're going to reflect on how your body's feeling, and we're going to do a little flip grid post. So if you click on that link there to the homeostasis activity flip grid, it should take you to this. I have the instructions about what to do, but essentially I would like you to film yourself as you're currently sitting, reflect on how you feel. Are you rested? Are you tired? Whatever. And then get up and do some kind of short exercise. You can run up and down a staircase 10 times, count out 10 paces and run back and forth 10 times. If you're injured or just don't feel like moving that much or don't have the space, you can do push-ups or sit-ups or jumping jacks. Don't get too intense, right? Do about 20 reps of something, but get something where your heart is going. Please be safe. And then film yourself again right after, and you can film yourself doing it too. And then right afterwards, I want you to reflect on this question. What do you notice about how your body responds to the exercise? What do you notice about your temperature, your breathing, your heart rate? And is that an example of positive feedback or negative feedback? And explain. So I'm going to time for 15 minutes for you to go work on that. I'll be here listening if you have any questions or if you're not sure what to do. Jillian, question?
So we have to film ourselves doing the activity and then film after, or?
I would just make it one video, yeah. And you don't have to film yourself doing the activity. I mean, you can just hold your phone while you're running, or just put it down, go do it, come back.
Okay.
Doesn't matter to me. Yeah, it should be quick. So.
Okay.
All right, go for it. I'll time for 15 minutes, and then we'll come back together.
My thing says that it's locked until 4:10.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, same here.
Okay, let me, yeah, sorry. I think because that's the homework assignment, right? Let me undo that. That's under the assignments, and then we'll just make it available now. Yeah, sorry, I was pushing it until the end of class. Okay, I just updated the assignment, so you might need to refresh your page, but then yeah, you should be able to get to the assignment and then just get to the flip grid. If you just click on the link that I think is in the tasks list, the first one, it'll take you straight to the flip grid.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Cool. All right, kiddos, time is up. Let's come to a stopping point, come back together. Nobody hurt themselves, right? No falls down the stairs or slipped ankles or anything like that. So in our little exercise, what'd you notice? What happens to your breathing rate? Goes up. Why? Anyone know? Why do we breathe harder?
Because your muscles need oxygen or more. Something
Okay.
like that.
So thinking from a homeostatic perspective, though, so what does your brain notice? Anyone know about your blood?
It's pumping, right? It's moving.
The harder
Yep.
you breathe,
You're
the
getting more
more
CO2 out. Or,
oxygen gets to your lungs.
Very good. So yeah, Keone hit it, and Bailey, you were right on there too. Our brain actually doesn't monitor your oxygen levels. Our brain is incapable of doing that. Your brain monitors your CO2 levels, right? Carbon dioxide. And so like Keone said, the more we use our muscles, the more carbon dioxide we release. So it's sort of an indirect way that the brain realizes, okay, more carbon dioxide is being produced. We don't have enough oxygen. And so then it signals the lungs and the diaphragm to start breathing a lot faster. And again, it's all about homeostasis. It's about maintaining a certain amount of carbon dioxide in your blood and therefore a certain amount of oxygen in your blood. And so that's why you breathe faster when your muscles are working harder and you're working out. And then you might have noticed after you sat for a while, your breathing returns back to normal. Because again, it's not like you're going to keep breathing faster, then you'd have too much oxygen. So we touched on temperature, right? And you might be sweating a little bit. Anyone notice what happened to your heart rate? Also goes up, very similar. And again, comes back down. Your body is constantly doing this homeostasis, this maintenance. And so that's going to be sort of a resounding theme in a lot of the organ systems that we get into, and in particular circulation, which is what we're going to get into a lot of detail about in our next lesson. So last thing I want to touch on in our last few minutes here is the homework. There are a couple different things I'd like you to work on. If you're looking at the tasks to complete list, it's on the very bottom. First is please make sure you have posted your short little video of yourself reflecting a bit on homeostasis. I'll be watching those. You have your first reading from Hall, which is the textbook we're using, this one right here. Here, let me just get off the screen here. So this is our textbook to read. If you don't have this though, don't panic, because if you look at the assignment, I do say right there, here's a digital version. So I scanned the relevant pages. So if you don't have this book yet, it's okay. You have, there's a PDF version right there that you can access the pages that need to be read. I would like you to take some notes. I know this is a little old-fashioned, honestly, at this point, but since we're in front of our computers so much, I'm going to like you to take notes in a notebook. So you should have gotten the digital graph notebook right here. And I'd like you to take at least 1 page of notes. That's a minimum, with a sort of a general pattern of like write the unit, write the chapter you've read, the date, and then at least 2 vocabulary words and at least 2 pieces of notes. If not more. If you have your own system for note-taking on paper, that's great, you can use that. But if not, this is kind of the baseline, this is the basics that I'd like you to do. I have a whole explanation of that on that assignment, so if you look on there, it says Hall chapter 1.1 through 1.2 reading notes. I made a video and wrote out what I would expect, and you're gonna be submitting a photo of just 1 page, of your notes. That'll be sort of a little homework assignment as well. There is a reading check. It's a little quiz that you'll take once you're done with the reading. My policy on these reading quizzes is that you can take it up to 10 times. So you can retake it until you get that perfect score. And these are open notes and everything as well. And since we learned a lot about drawing today, our first drawing assignment, I'd like you to pick an organ system of your choice and just do a human anatomical view of that organ system. So here's an example of what I did. Anyone know what system did I draw?
Circulatory.
Yeah, so just try to get that human in anatomical form. My figure here has a freakishly small head, but I feel like I did a good job on the legs. No need to label anything, just what system it is, but then try to use some colors. If you don't have the sketchbook yet, just use paper. If you don't have colored pencils yet, use whatever you have around the house or just use a pencil. But this will be our first sort of thing to tackle drawing. So use the grid pattern. You can trace it off your screen if you want. Just Google search human anatomical figure model and you'll get a little kind of outline of that. There are also some pages in your textbooks that have examples of that. So again, it's all explained on that assignment there. And then the last thing is just an academic honesty and etiquette agreement. It's the same thing that's in the course description. Just glance through it and all you need to do is sign it by typing your name. That'll take 2 seconds. Questions on the homework? All right, kids. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, straight.
Thank you.
Mr. Haight, I had a question about when I was trying to log on, there's like the Zoom link on the Canvas page, and I tried to click that, but it didn't like take me anywhere or anything. So I
Okay.
just got on from the email that they sent us on like the first day of classes or something like that. And I was
Okay.
wondering if there was another way I would be able to get on.
I'll go check that. I should. You make a good point that I don't think I have posted a link on our homepage that isn't in that image. So right below that little Bitmoji image, I'll put a little piece of text that says Mr. Haight's Zoom thing, and I'll put an updated address there. I'll go check the one on my screen too, because yeah, I made that over the summer, I think. So I need to go. It's possible that that's not working. So thanks for letting me know about that. I'll go fix it. And so what I'll do is I'll put a link right below that image. Try using that. So that'll probably be the best thing to use.
Thank you.
Okay. Oops.